And thanks for coming tonight for what should be a very topical and probably quite well debated subject. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jonathan Head. I'm on the board of the FCCT and also the correspondent for the BBC in Southeast Asia, based here in Bangkok. Before we get going with tonight's programme, I'd just like to let you know about a couple of things coming up, or rather one that's coming up and one that was. Next Monday we have the latest in our international film series. These are always really striking and unique films. This one is a Swiss film called La Meraviglie, The Wonders, directed by Alice Rohrwacher, and from experience it's sponsored by the Swiss Embassy. I can assure you these films have been outstanding, all of them. They'll be providing Swiss wine and cheese as well. It's really well worth coming if you can. We were scheduled next Wednesday to hold an event on Buddhism and politics in Thailand. We've been asked by the police and by the military to cancel it. Now, we haven't agreed in that we don't lightly cancel any of our events, but it's quite likely there will be an order or some other kind. They're threatening to bring soldiers and police and shut the place down. So we're not sure at the moment. It looks unlikely that event will go ahead, but that was scheduled for next Wednesday. Unfortunately, a very topical one. We're told that they think the event threatens national security, which we don't agree with. None of our events that we've ever held at the club have ever either ended up causing trouble or stirring up trouble. They're always well moderated and balanced events, but unfortunately that argument has not gained any ground with the military so far, so it's quite likely that that event will be cancelled. But I want to get on to tonight's event, and we scheduled this in some haste after the storm of media attention directed to the famous so-called Tiger Temple west of Kanchanaburi, which of course has been a very popular tourist destination for many, many years, and has indeed been the subject of quite fierce debate about the ethics of keeping tigers, of tiger tourism, what relevance it has to conservation. I mean, it is a fact that in Thailand there are quite a number of places where huge numbers of tigers, not usually native tigers, they're nearly all Bengal tigers that breed very well in captivity, are kept. Some of them holding very many more tigers than the facility at the temple. But the temple has really focused attention since the raid and since the revelation that there were dead tiger cubs found there, skins and others, some indications of the possibility that there might have been illegal trafficking going on, although it's quite likely many people didn't know about that. And so there's a very big debate about it. I don't think we really know the full story, which is why we've called tonight's event. We're very privileged tonight to have the great conservationist Edwin Wieck, who runs a rescue centre in Phetchaburi and has been following this issue for a very long time and has been quite critical of the temple. But I'm particularly pleased that we have two volunteers who worked in the Tiger Temple, very passionate about animal welfare and about the roles they played there. We have Tanya Zinjolu, who worked there for 6 years as a volunteer and really knows the inner workings and can give us some insight as to what people were trying to do in that temple, what was really going on. And Jang Tamtong, a Thai member of staff at the temple. Both of them, I think, can give us quite a unique insight. We were also hoping to get Kung Adison Nungdamrong, who's running the national park operation to close the temple and been taking the tigers out. Unfortunately, he's been called away at the last minute, and he explained that because he's been so involved in this for so long, there really is nobody else inside the Department of National Parks who can substitute for him. So unfortunately, that side of things, which we really wanted to hear from tonight, is not available. But I've no doubt we will get a very comprehensive airing of the issues, and in particular, once we've finished listening to the three panelists, I'm very keen that you should all take the chance to ask questions. This is what the Foreign Correspondents Club is about. It's a free speech forum, a forum for constructive and fair debate, and any reasonable questions will be taken so that we can really properly explore the very complex ethical issues that lie behind this. And just as one little aside, those of you who are not members of the FCCT, do think about joining. The club survives on its membership. There's nothing else quite like it in Bangkok, and we're very keen, in particular, for non-journalists to join. You know, journalists themselves are in some ways, we might call us an endangered species, at least the established ones, and we're very keen to broaden the membership of the club. It is not just a journalist club, it's a club for everyone and an important part of Bangkok life. I'd like to ask Edwin, first of all, to start off with an address and also a short video that he'll be showing us.
Is it working? Yep, it is. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Edwin Week. I'm the founder of the Wildlife Friends Foundation. Most people in Thailand probably heard about our work. And we've been working on conservation of wildlife and the rescue of wild animals in Thailand for the last 16 years. I'm going to do a very small introduction about the tiger trade in Thailand, just very short, just to give those people that are not aware of what's going on with this trade a small introduction. Tigers in Thailand have been protected under the 1992 Wildlife Preservation Act. They are called Satsangwan, which means restricted animals. There's only 15 species of these animals. And before the law came into place in 1992, before that law came into place, people had an amnesty period of 90 days where people that had these animals, wildlife, in their possession could actually get an amnesty paper saying that they could keep that animal. In 2003, a similar issue happened. There was an amendment to the law, and again there was an amnesty, where in that time in 2003, actually 1,147,000 animals, wild animals, were registered with people around Thailand. That actually was a total number. There was a lot of birds of that. I mean, almost 600,000 were birds. There were also a lot of reptiles, etc. But there were also over 200 tigers registered with people as private property. This is not including the zoos and tiger farms at that time. In 2007, Thailand, as a member of the CITES, the Conference on International Trade in Endangered Species, adopted a resolution 14.69, in which all parties, especially the range states where tigers were found in the wild, concluded that the intense breeding of tigers for commercial use had to be stopped. That was in 2007, just about this month, about 9 years ago. Well, instead of that, actually, we've seen the tiger farms actually getting more. In 2007, there were exactly 661 tigers in tiger facilities around Thailand. And right now, in 2016, there are 1,475 tigers in tiger farms around Thailand, which is definitely not downscaling the trade, but actually making it a lot bigger. Thailand, just like Laos and Vietnam and China, have basically not kept their promise under this agreement. You see some of the tiger farms in Thailand operate like this. This is Sriracha, the biggest facility. But there are other farms in Thailand that don't have tourists coming in. And the facilities at those tiger farms are similar to this one. This is a tiger farm just outside Bangkok. You can see how the tigers are being kept over there. And it's a breeding facility purely for commercial use. And this is what you find when you go upstairs. There are currently 30 tiger farms, tiger breeding facilities in Thailand. And as I said earlier, with almost 1,500 tigers in captivity. This is a map. This map was constructed with the help of many NGOs, done by EIA, the Environmental Investigation Agency. And on this map, you can see in yellow the locations of tiger farms, tiger facilities in the country. And the black spots are the spots where tigers have been confiscated in the last 10 years. Over 100 live tigers were confiscated, and 30 of them were carcasses, dead animals. And as you probably all know, it is for the skin, the meat, the bone, claws and teeth, but even nowadays the tiger penises are considered very profit-making, so male tigers at the moment have actually a higher price than females just for the use of the penises in the traditional Chinese medicine. This is an example. This picture was made in 2009, it's a while ago, but this was in Mukdahan province, crossing from Thailand. It's very special to see actually that you see the tigers are being cut in half through the middle. Most people think that the skin actually is very, very costly, very expensive, so you should keep that in one piece. But actually, after the tigers have been killed. Mostly they are killed by putting them in a drowning bath, so you don't have to have a bullet wounds or make any noise. The animals are cut into half. The intestines and all the insides are being taken out by the people, and then they end up in the back of a car on transport to the Lao border. Wait a minute. So at this moment, and this information is lately updated, the prices for a tiger from a tiger farm or a zoo is approximately 150,000 to 200,000 baht. The males being more expensive. The Thai-Lao border, basically less than a day travel actually, the price almost doubles for these animals. And once they reach the Chinese border into China, prices have been registered of 500,000 to 700,000 baht. It's very profitable. It's profitable, but it's also a big problem because the legislation. The profits in drugs and profits in wildlife trade are quite similar. However, in these wildlife trade, the maximum fine in Thailand currently is 40,000 baht. It's about $1,200. Even if you have 20 tigers with you, that still is the maximum fine. And the maximum penalty into jail term is up to 4 years. However, in most cases, these people get off, if it's the first time eviction, with 1 year suspended jail term. That's not going to stop them from trading tigers again. These are some examples. These are the baby tigers. This was a bust of 16 tigers in the back of a truck, 16 tiger cubs on the way to Laos 2 years ago. Here is another, this lady in the middle. She had 5 tiger cubs on the back seat in these plastic baskets, and she was stopped in there. The man on the left is the man with the 16 cubs. These 16 cubs are all from captivity. We're pretty sure about that. You will not find any piece of forest in Thailand or any of the neighboring countries where you can just get 16 tiger cubs out of the wild. That's impossible. The problem is that we estimate, and this is by talks with illegal wildlife traders, that about 10% of the trade here actually is tigers from the wild. And here are some examples of these. The last case was only a few months ago. That's Rurchai, or Uan as he's called. He's been trading wildlife for the last 15 years. He's been arrested half a dozen times. He's been to court 3 times. He's been convicted, and he was lately caught again with a tiger that was found to come from Huay Kha Keng National Park. It was actually a tiger that was photographed by researchers from WCS or WWF, I'm not sure. And they recognized the stripes on the tiger once he was found on the car in Mae Sot province. On the right-hand side, 2 Vietnamese men went to the same national park in Huay Kha Keng and made themselves a selfie after killing the tiger. And once they got caught with that tiger on their way to the Vietnamese border, the Lao border, the Vietnamese border, this picture was found on his phone. And that means that there are indeed tigers taken from the wild as well. Now, we're talking about the Tiger Temple. This is an issue we're talking about as well, the missing tigers of the Tiger Temple. There are documents from the Tiger Temple, an exchange contract with a tiger farm in Laos, and also with a lady in central Thailand. The abbot wanted to have tigers from elsewhere so he could breed more. He also wanted to have lions. These 3 documents are the 3 tigers that were missing last year. This is basically what I think was the beginning of the end of the Tiger Temple. We really have to give credit here to Dr. Somchai, who was a veterinarian at the temple for very long, to come up with this news and actually tell everybody what happened. And he came with these documents, and these 3 tigers have still not been found. However, on a document on the left, this is a very old document, you can see there was a contract between somebody called Boon Reung, that's not Dao Reung, but Boon Reung, who owns a farm in Laos. And they did only exchange tigers, but they also had even supplied the temple with lions in the past. Some of the photographs you can see. Now, the tiger farm in Laos is right here. We had a drone fly over the facility, and you can see here what this place looks like. It's a bunch of cages next to each other. Tigers in there. They're empty at the moment. This was made in the middle of the day at 12 o'clock. Unfortunately, around that time, the tigers are not outside. And this tiger farm is owned by a Thai man and his Laotian wife. And when you turn around, with the drone. Actually, the Thai border is just there, that green stripe. That's where the Mekong River is. This is just opposite Nakhon Phanom in northeast of Thailand. So that's the facility. You can see two rows of cages over there with buildings, inside buildings, and also one on the top. And the forest you see here, under here, is a holding place to keep pangolins. He's also keeping pangolins over there. This is a so-called zoo. Well, no visitors over there. It's just a safe house for smuggled wildlife. Besides this place, there are two more places located in a similar way. One is opposite Bung Kan province in Thailand. The other one is opposite Loi province in Laos. And yeah, they've been open since the last 2 years. The amount of tiger farms in in Laos is actually shockingly increasing at the moment. Well, to end this all, there might be some good news coming. Right now, we have, as NGOs, with many Thai NGOs, I see some of them here, WWF, Freeland, Wildlife Friends Foundation, ourselves, and a lot of other ones, Love Wildlife somewhere, yeah. We've been working on a new law, and actually the Thai government, the Department of National Parks, was told by the minister to include NGOs in drafting this new law, and well, the law has been drafted. It's ready to go. It's at the moment with the permanent secretary of the Ministry of National Resources. We hope he's going to finally forward it to Parliament in the next few weeks. That would be nice. Under the new law, there are improved protection for all wildlife. Currently, orangutans, lions, chimpanzees, all kind of foreign wildlife not found in the wild in Thailand are not protected under Thai law, only when they enter or leave the country. So possession is not a crime for these animals. The penalties will be a lot higher under this new law, and there will be even a difference in possession, whether you have possession for keeping it yourself as a pet or when you use it for trade. And actually the good thing is that those people that trade will get the maximum penalty, with a minimum penalty of 4 years up to 10 years in jail. Furthermore, the new law will allow NGOs and other organizations with know-how to help care for protected wildlife that's been confiscated, which is very good, because we really need more professional operations in Thailand to take care for all these animals that are confiscated. And the last one is that there will be also a chance for better standards and regulations under ministerial laws with this new law, basically making it possible to keep DNA and all kind of registration details better filed, so the laundering of illegal wildlife into facilities with wildlife such as zoos and farms can be stopped. The most beautiful tiger is a wild and free one. That's it, thank you.
Thank you very much, Edwin. I don't know which of you, Tanya or Chang, wants to go first. Okay, Chang, thanks very much. Chang was one of the people who worked in the Tiger Temple, so she's got a couple of things to say now.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Chatraphon Tamthong. I actually work as both volunteer and as a staff member at the Tiger Temple for almost 7 years. I actually don't have a degree on this field at all. I have a degree on Faculty of Humanity from Kasetsart University, and have another degree from Hospitality from University of Brighton in England. So as first that I come here to the temple, at first I come as a tourist, and I actually don't like the temple at all because it's against what I believe in. But then I got a chance to talk to some of the volunteers there, and they suggest me to, if you want to help, come to volunteer. So not long after, I actually come to start volunteering at the Tiger Temple. But not long after I start volunteering, I see a few problems, some of the problems inside the temple, and some of the things that I feel like I could help to improve. And one of the most important thing that I see between the foreign team and Thai staff is the lack of communication and the language barrier and cultural difference. And for me, as Thai citizen, I see like when you go anywhere in the world, if you want to go to a different country, if you want to make changes in that country, first thing you need to do is you learn the culture. Okay, if you learn the culture, you gain a respect, and you prove yourself that you know what you're talking about. And to prove to some of the staff at the temple to make changes, you have to show them how to do, not to just tell them what to do, because they're not going to believe you because someone just arrived like a week ago. So for me, like, I think that is very important. I see the tiger and I got quite attached to the tiger, and I want to see good thing happen to this tiger. And as our team as well, our foreign team, our goal is always been tiger welfare, tiger enrichment, and also to push the Tiger Island to open so tiger can go in the enclosure. So I after not long after I volunteering, I actually got a staff position, and I feel like, oh, this is my opportunity to break through this gap. And since then, our team start working together with the staff, and we actually start making changes. Like, first off, like we start getting at the time we have 2 bears in a tiny little cages, so we actually got to build the bear enclosure. We got a chance to, after that we have 2 lions back then, and we have this empty land that potential to make a huge enclosure for this lion. So after the bear, we start the lion, and in the meantime, we start building up the enclosure for the tiger as well, which at first we start by one enclosure to do a tryout to see how it's go. And when things got better, and then we build more, and at the end we sort of finish the first stage of Tiger Island. And after we can do the tiger out in the enclosure, we start introduce some enrichment program with our volunteer, with our foreign team. And then we also have like a tiger enclosure, hornbill enclosure and silver cat. But I think Tanya will go into the detail after. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jane. So Tanya, perhaps, you did 6 years, didn't you, in the temple? So I think people will be really fascinated to know what it was like, and also what motivated you when you were there.
Okay, good evening. I'm Tanya Erzachilga, and as I said, I've been here at the temple for 6 years. Similar to Jang, I did arrive as a tourist. I didn't like the whole tourist interaction, but most people don't. And I found out that I could volunteer, and as a volunteer, it would be easier to see actually what was going on within the temple. Once I started volunteering, I just kept staying there, basically because there was so much room for improvement, and there was so much to keep pushing for within the temple itself. Our starting point was the enrichment side of things. At that point, the tigers didn't have any enclosures, so as most of you are fully aware, enrichment is really, really important for the welfare, mental and physical, for any animal in captivity. In starting, we started to do just in-cage enrichment because none of the tigers had any enclosures. So we started with the whole sensory, tactile, anything that we could think of to get the tigers stimulated in any kind of way. So we used to do different scents. We tried to discover what kind of scents the tigers would like, what they were excited by. We used different toys. We tried to give them things to scratch on. We got them grass because they couldn't go outside to get this for themselves. And gradually, as this worked, we could find new ideas. Soon, as Jane said, we started to push for the enclosures. We started very small with just a couple of enclosures, letting the tigers out and seeing if they were okay outside, if they could come back in. The big worry from Thai staff and from the management was that we wouldn't be able to get the tigers back inside into the cages for the nighttime. So we had to practice that a lot beforehand. And gradually, as we could prove that it was possible and the tigers would just naturally come back inside, gradually we started to open up more and more enclosures throughout the Tiger Island complex. And gradually, over this period of a year, we got every single tiger out. Contrary to what a lot of people say, the enclosures are at a very high standard. I'm quite proud of them, to be honest. They are large, they're spacious, they have a lot of natural environment to them. There's lots of caves, ponds, trees, places for them to hide. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, for big cats, hiding is very important. It does help part of their natural behavior. It helps them to not feel endangered. Hiding in caves and behind bushes, everything like that, that's their natural behavior for to help and prevents against stereotypical behaviours. Also, with the large size of enclosures, the smallest one we have is 360 square meters, but the largest one we have is 2,000 square meters, which actually far exceeds most international standards. It has been proved that the stereotypical behavior of pacing, the negative behavior seen in a lot of captive tigers, is coming from the fact that the enclosures are not big enough, and our standard is recommended of 1,000 square meters per tiger. At this point, none of our tigers really display any stereotypical behavior, bar a couple of some of our older tigers. And this we have managed to avoid through rigorous enrichment processes and also the large natural environment. Once out in the enclosures, we could improve our enrichment further by implementing toys, environment enrichment, and again, whilst it's not ideal, we did have to put a rotation policy in place for our tigers. At the time, we didn't have enough enclosures. We had 29 enclosures within inside Tiger Island, with which to rotate 147 tigers. Okay, so it is a lot, but we managed to do this. Every tiger was out within a 2-day period. Some of them may have only got half a day at a time, but we tried the best we could. But also this rotation did actually help the tigers in their mental stimulation as well, and encouraging natural behaviors such as scent marking, traversing the territory as it were, because the day before a different tiger would have been in there and scent marking itself as well. One of our current concerns with the situation is that personally for me and Jang, we are pretty much two of the only people that actually know these tigers, and for us as handlers this is really, really important. We've spent every day for the last 6 and 7 years working with these tigers. We know everything about them. We know their traits, their personalities. We spot things medically. As soon as there's a problem, we can tell, we know straight away. Recently, we did have an incident where one of our tigers apparently started to spray and her urine looked dark. We instantly informed the vets. We got a urine sample for them. They were concerned that she had bladder stones. They came in, they took her straight to the vet clinic, and because we had caught it so quickly, we'd actually managed to avoid any bladder stones developing, and she actually only had bladder crystals. And the vets were mightily impressed, to be honest, with that, because we'd actually caught it so quick. And this is something that we're very good at because of the fact that we know the tigers so well that we can detect any small changes in their behavior. This is something that we're really concerned about with the recent move, in that at this point, no one has given any medical history, no personality history, nothing towards the DNP whatsoever. We've tried to offer our help, they've asked for our help, and then when we tried to give them the information, they've actually refused. Also, they're not letting us in. I believe no one's being allowed in at the moment to the facility, and this also concerns us greatly. The excuse we're being given at the moment is that they want the tigers to adjust to the new handlers, which is fair enough, except for the fact that, as most of you will know, animals would adjust better with familiar faces around. It would actually ease that transition a lot better, and we would actually be able to help the tigers get used to the new environment. Another point that we're concerned about is actually the state of the facilities that the DNP have. Whilst the Tiger Temple was not 100% ideal, they did actually at least have access to these large natural enclosures, and right now most of the cages are about 10 by 4 meters squared with just concrete and a little tiny platform for the tigers. There doesn't appear to be any further improvements and no current plans for building a sanctuary. So for us at this point, this is what our major concern is and where we're coming from as the handlers from Tiger Temple. So basically we just want to follow the tigers, and we just want to make sure the tigers are actually going to be actually looked after. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If it's all right with you, I'd like to throw the floor open to questions, because I think that's where we'll get the best discussion going. There's a microphone up. There should be a stand up right there. If you want to ask a question, could you please identify yourselves and before you ask your question? I can't actually see the mic there, but I assume it is there. Thank you, Tam. Okay, there is a mic there now. Okay. If anybody has any questions, please go up and take the microphone. And please identify yourself. You can bring it down. You can even take the mic out if you like. Yeah. Tam, can we put the mic on, please? Otherwise, you might just have to shout very loud.
One, two. Oh, there we go.
You're on.
All right. Hello, Jang and Tanya. Thank you very much for your lovely talk that you gave in regard to those beautiful enclosures that you've shown us, and I agree, they are beautiful. My name is Sybil Foxcroft, and I'm the author of the Tiger Temple Report, as you know. What I have to say is a question to you. The officials have informed me that there are up to 5 to 10 lactating tigers inside the DMP facilities right now. Tiger Temple was told not to breed or trade. Where are the cubs of those mothers?
Can anyone answer that question?
To be honest, we actually don't know in specifically. We know that we have some tiger that actually pregnant right now, and we have one of the tiger which her name is Sai Duan. She was very, very pregnant, but we're not sure if she have giving birth or not by the time the DMP actually come to take the tiger. But as far as I know, none of other tigers have been giving birth of any kind, like, as far as I know.
No.
But we know that some tiger might be pregnant.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask you another question?
Okay.
We released a press release a couple of weeks ago, that second report that we have not and will not publicise. That was on the tiger body parts, the sales, gifting and tiger body parts travelling on international borders from Tiger Temple. We were able to track a volunteer from Tiger Temple across the world, and we had to have her stopped by customs and border control because these are illegal to sell inside the Tiger Temple, and all those items were found. Do you know, were you aware of those body parts being sold, whether they're nail clippings or teeth falling out? They were sold to numerous tourists that were innocent all around the world.
Okay.
Did you know that? Tell me if you knew that.
Okay. So first question is about the tiger that been. What is your first question?
The question is from Tanya and Jang. Did you know that selling the tiger body parts on trinkets around necklaces was a breach of the CITES agreement, and to give them to innocent tourists put their lives in danger when they travelled to another country? For example, one girl travelled over to Indonesia with a body part of tiger just hanging off her neck. She didn't know. But if she was caught over in Indonesia with that body part, she could have served 10 years in jail. Did you know that?
Okay.
The fact that I know is, I know that some of our volunteers
Yeah.
who come and help work at the temple,
Yeah.
when we go building the enclosure, put the toy up, strip the tie, and empty the pond, some
Yes.
of the volunteer will go around the tree, will go around
Yes.
the tiger, because our tiger, we don't declaw.
No, I know that. I
So
know
when
that.
they scratch, because they sharpen
They
their claw,
scratch and their claws
and then
fall
they
out.
will. There's some pieces of claw falling out.
Yes.
And then I know that some people might took those and
Yes.
make them own necklace as a memory. But for me, as selling like body parts of, like trading the tiger, for the example, I do not know, but I know that some of ours, they actually pick up the little pieces in the glass, in the dirt, and ask one of the staff, like making up a claw. And for that, to be honest, I do not know that it's illegal until recently.
Until recently? Okay.
For
Tanya,
me, it's not
sorry,
really.
Tanya, I was wondering if we could ask you, because obviously one of the things that's come out in all the news coverage is the allegation. I mean, obviously there's a lot of interpretations. There were all these frozen tiger cubs. There were tiger cubs found preserved in formaldehyde. There were also amulets found with parts of tigers. I mean, perhaps you worked there a long time. What is your view of that?
We knew about the baby tigers because that had been part of the vet policy, and he'd specified that staff, when a baby tiger died, put them into the freezer. The vet himself, he would put them in formaldehyde, and we just assumed that everything was recorded and that this seemed perfectly plausible reason to put them into the freezer, record them, and then have the DMP come and check. As for the tiger amulets, I had absolutely no idea that existed, and I actually arrived in the temple on the day that they pulled them out of the truck, and I was literally greeted with that happening. As far as those amulets, I had
So you were 6 years there, you didn't know about
6 years
it?
there, and I had no idea that they had all these amulets, no.
Edwin, what do you make of the frozen tiger cubs and the ones preserved in formaldehyde?
Well, let me first say that the selling of body parts in the temple to tourists is not true. There are some people that have visited the temple, mostly Thai people, other monks, maybe people that are influential, that might have gotten one of these hangers, whatever. But there was no such case that people were sold tiger parts by the temple directly to tourists. We've had a volunteer in there for a long time. It didn't happen. If people took any parts out of the temple, it must have been in the cases like what Tanya just explained, or what you just explained about the claws and maybe a part of a canine. I can imagine a whole canine. I find it hard to believe that will be removed automatically, easily by playing by tigers. Anyway, the first images coming out of those dead cubs, and the amount of them was of course absolutely shocking. I mean, over 60 in total is a shocking amount. But when you're inbreeding tigers, when you are just breeding without any responsibility, you're inbreeding generation after generation, you create an extremely weak specimen. And a lot of these animals will not make it because they're inbred. Now, the explanation is that these tiger cubs were kept as evidence that nobody could ever say that they were traded. The question then, of course, is, if you're really so concerned about it, why did you never register these? If you had 3 cubs born on a specific day and they were dead, you should have registered them with the DNP and said, DNP, we got 3 tigers, they were stillborn, they died after 5 days, whatever. You register them. Then you are showing your objectives, then you're showing your innocence. But if you do not register anything and keep on piling up, even putting some in formalin for scientific use, I can still leave that. But some of the tigers were also in a vinegar solution, which is definitely for consumption. Now, I'm absolutely aware that these ones were not found in the clinic. They were found in the kuti, in the house of the abbot, and they were also the same place where they found the skins and where they found all the little pendants and stuff. So the explanation can only be given by a few people, including the abbot, and I think he's not going to come here and sit on a panel to say and to explain this all. But I think it's very clear that there has been at least a small group of people involved in illegal wildlife trafficking from the temple. I mean, that's pretty clear. But it's not as bad as some people have said, where it's like a whole syndicate or something. I don't believe that. As a matter of fact, I have talked to several illegal wildlife traffickers over the last few days, and most of them say that this is for them unexpected. They don't think it can be that big because they would have known about it.
Sybil, does that answer your question?
No, because unfortunately the second report, we did not release that for a specific reason, because we have the evidence and the proof, and the DMP has it that there was sales and gifting and international transport of those body parts. That is why we have not released the report, because there was...
If you claim this in public again and again with your reports, which is basically copied and pasted information
Edwin,
from other people,
Edwin,
why don't you come up with the evidence before actually this comes out?
I don't deal with you, I deal with the DMP, and I would like...
If you do not want to deal with me, then you shouldn't be asking questions around.
So I just one point, Sybil.
Yes.
I mean, you're making some quite serious allegations here, and this is a public forum. Do you have evidence to back that up here?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I mean, I don't suppose you can present it now.
It's with the DMP
That means
and the police.
And that means it's not for the public yet.
I've been asked to release this report repeatedly, but because of the many innocent tourists that came into the Tiger Temple and bought those tiger parts, I can't release that and with innocent people.
Well, if we can't back it up now, can we leave it for now? Because this is on the public record.
For sure.
Okay. Thanks very much.
As long as it's on record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question, please.
Hi. Hello. My name is Polawat. I'm a student. So my question is, what will happen if there's no tiger in the temple? That's it.
For us, we be not working for the temple anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a public forum, so I just wanna
for
know,
me,
like-
I don't know. I want to follow tiger. So I don't know what's gonna happen to the temple.
Were you asking what's going to happen to the temple
yeah, like,
itself?
without the without the tiger.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting theory because obviously you're saying it has very good facilities for tigers. I mean, what does anybody know what's going to happen? Do any of you know?
For me, I would hope that if we can bring up some of the tiger or use the facility for some good use. But I don't know if it's possible or not. But as far as I know, I do not know what's going to happen to the temple.
Edwin, I mean, do you have any thoughts about what should happen to the temple?
Well, I think right now the forestry department, who actually owns the land, is having an investigation whether the land was issued to the temple and on what conditions. It's obviously a breach of conditions when it's been used for commercial businesses. So it is actually legally possible for the forestry department to withdraw the ownership, the temporary ownership of the temple, get actually the people out of there, and then it would be also legally possible for the Department of National Parks to ask for these facilities to be turned into an education center or a conservation center for wildlife. This is legally, theoretically, it is possible, and it would be probably the best on short term for the animal welfare of the tigers.
So the tigers should go back ideally.
Well, I think ideally some of the tigers should go back and the monks should get out.
Next question, please.
Hi, Jerome Taylor from AFP News Agency. Can I ask the volunteers, firstly, Tanya and Kunjang, do you feel a sense of personal disappointment as to what's happened, and particularly with the discovery of things like the skins and amulets, the monks trying to smuggle them out on the back of the truck? When that news became public, when these guys were stopped, how did you feel about seeing that? And the second question, I guess, is that there have been known problems, there have been accusations with substantial evidence leveled against the temple for many, many years. Why has it taken so long for the Thai authorities to do anything about it? And that may be more for Edwin rather than the volunteer.
Okay. I mean, Tanya and Jang, your own feelings.
As far as the skins and the amulets are concerned, I didn't know, and I'm pretty sure same for Jang. We didn't know that those existed. We actually arrived on the day in the temple to give a police statement about the tiger cubs. And we're actually greeted with a media frenzy. We didn't know what was going on, and then suddenly a tiger skin was lifted up as we drove in through the front gates. So as you can imagine, it was a major shock. We've worked there a long time, and for the most part, a lot of the allegations we hadn't believed to be true. Basically, it was just a shock. And yeah, we did not expect that. And then afterwards, seeing all the photos of the literally hundreds of amulets, again, it was something that I had never expected.
Jang?
Sorry, go on.
It's the same people in the same car, basically. But as far as I'm concerned, as I read the news that the amulet and the tiger skin, they said in the news that they come from the monks' property, which we never, we as a female person, we not allowed to go even near the building because we females, basically. So
I mean, it's clear in my mind that you two are both motivated by a sincere love for the tigers and a sincere love for animals in general. Do you believe now the monks who run that temple are the right people to be taking care of animals like tigers? Or do you think an investigation by the Thai authorities is legitimate and needed now in light of what's happened?
I think it's still legitimate for sure. Even if it's not necessarily monks, someone is involved, and something needs to be done, for sure.
And Edwin, sorry, just on why do you think it's taken just so long? Are we just dealing with the usual sort of application of law in Thailand, or is there something more at play here as to why this temple was able to continue for so long, despite
there
lengthy...
There will be more than one reason. I think the first reason, of course, is they were monks. They are influential people. They had some really senior backing. I think to the authorities, the trade and the illegal issues were not really proven until those 3 tigers actually got missing last year. It was all very circumstantial evidence. It was more about animal welfare than about trade, to be honest, until then. And I think also the potential PR disaster a raid like this can be. I mean, taking out 147 tigers, taking them under your care, taking them out of facilities at the Tiger Temple. I mean, to be honest, some of the cages are really good, and some of the cages that I've seen behind are really horrible. And of course, taking the animals out, it would have been probably more wise to take only half of them out, as was also at first the issue. But when the abbot of the Tiger Temple 2 months ago refused to hand over another 60 tigers after 10 were taken, he made it impossible for the DNP to further have any kind of constructive dialogue. He basically said, I've got a zoo permit coming now, I don't need to hand over the tigers, I'll pay you the money for the tigers and I'll keep them, you can't take them. And I think he made it impossible by then to actually have a proper dialogue. And I think that actually, all together with the statements of the ex-veterinarian and the ex-lawyer, plus the evidence that was provided by others in the trade, basically made it impossible for the DNP to step back. The abbot actually kept on stepping on their feet, keep on making all kind of allegations. And I think that until the day that they raided on the 30th of the 31st of May, the DNP still had the idea of taking only half of the tigers out, until all these cubs came up and all the other stuff came out, people fleeing with goods from the temple. By then it was impossible to step back and they had to go on. And I think this is a serious issue right now we're facing, because what's going to happen to all these tigers and the other animals that have been taken away? This is actually something that I think should be discussed as well, because taking care of 147 tigers in the current facilities is going to be a nightmare.
Next question, Nirmal.
So I'm Nirmal Ghosh from the Straits Times. I'm also involved in conservation in my parallel life, so just in the interest of disclosure. Just 2-3 quick questions actually. One is, were there any breeding records? It seems the tigers are bred pretty indiscriminately at this temple. Indeed, as in other tiger farms. Were there any actual breeding records kept? Was there a stud book? Is there any record of this kind? Second is, was there any attempt at all by the DNP during all these years, you've both been there a number of years, Tanya, especially you, I think, to come and check on the tigers, sterilize them, because the temple is not supposed to breed tigers? That's the second question. The third is, I'm just interested in what your perception was of the overarching philosophy of the temple. Because some years ago, the temple used to say, oh, this is a tiger conservation. And then when that sort of wore thin, it seemed to appear, it is obviously a business. I'm just curious as to what kind of impression you got from the abbot and the monks and everybody else as to what is the overarching philosophy of this whole operation. Thanks.
It's a lot of questions there, Tanya, but I mean, breeding records.
Okay, so the first one about breeding records, as far as that goes, for me personally, I actually kept breeding records for myself. This was because from very beginning, hearing all the rumors as the first time, even just when I was first volunteering, I actually kept my own personal records just to keep track and see if the allegations of trading, everything like that, was actually true. So yeah, I do keep my own personal records, which obviously is the Foreign Department. We have and I did provide to the management as well. So there are records for who is bred with who and who's the parents of who and all that kind of thing. I believe the DNP...
Are those official records or just your own, or does anybody else have them?
I believe the DNP should have a certain amount of them for sure, up until a certain point, because Dr. Somchai also kept records before he left, and I believe he gave it to the DNP. And the DNP do have registered records of all the 147 tigers, but I don't know how in-depth their records are. I've forgotten what this is.
Were there any attempts by the DNP to go and neuter any of the tigers?
Yeah, okay. I don't believe so. Basically, we did look into it in terms of how much it would cost to actually give injections to the females so that they wouldn't have cubs. The temple refused on the basis of them being Buddhist and they didn't want to interfere with nature. And I believe the DNP's answer, because it was too expensive, was that the simple solution was just separate the males and females and just separate them that way to prevent breeding.
And what was your sense of the overall point of this temple? Because clearly there were Bengal tigers. It's not about conserving tigers in Thailand, so that's not the purpose, is it?
Basically, for me, the temple part had nothing to do with why I ever worked there. I'll admit it, I'm not religious. I do have a healthy skepticism in any kind of religion. To be honest, I didn't involve myself with the monks at all. I didn't really converse with the abbot. I talked to a couple of monks just as friends and just to learn a little bit about the culture, but that was it. As far as that temple side of things, I don't hold it in high regard at all, and I was just concentrating on the tigers and the welfare of them, and that was my only concern.
Did you feel at all uncomfortable that this was essentially animals being used for tourism rather than for any other purpose?
Absolutely. It was something that, as the Foreign Department, we were always trying to change. We do a thing called the special photo, which is where they put the tiger's head in the tourist lap, and this is something that earlier last year we tried really hard to get cancelled. We managed to cancel it for about a week. Before tour guides actually were the ones that kicked up a fuss because they wanted their tourists to have this special photo. We did try to come up with other plans and other programs that would involve less hands-on with the tigers, but again, the tourist demand kind of overrode anything that we tried to put in place. We did try to start what we called the chill out program, which basically involved guests coming into an enclosure with some of the middle-sized type of tiger cubs and basically just watching them and observing them as they roamed around doing their own thing without actually interacting, and they could just take their own photos of the tigers out and about rather than actually going in and touching. But again, management realized that other programs where there's actually full-on hands-on actually did raise more money, and again, the tourist demand did push it that way, but it was something that we were constantly striving towards. And I was coming up with another program to run in the morning, which would actually just involve making enrichment items for the tigers and not actually having anything hands-on for the guests whatsoever. But again, this is just something that we were trying to push for, and it just never came to fruition.
Thank you very much. Any other question, please? Next one. Yeah, Corey.
Yes, Corey Wright, freelance. Can you offer some insight into a comparison between where the tigers are being kept now as compared to the facilities that they were in previous to the raid, if you will?
Okay, so the facilities at the temple, the facilities at the temple, we've got some pictures and everything, so you can actually have a look. But basically, we have like the cages, which they spend, to be honest, the majority of their time, and also at night. The smallest of which is about 20 meters squared, and the largest is 63 meters squared. Then they also have these outside enclosures. As I said before, they range from 360 meters squared up to 2,000 meters squared, and have a much more natural environment.
Are these the DMP?
This is the DMP cages.
So this is where they are now?
Yeah, so currently the tigers are now residing in these, which the biggest one, I believe, is 10 meters by 4 meters. We did a comparison when the first 5 tigers were taken, just to show what the kind of living condition and how they were behaving for the tigers when they were at the temple versus what they look like in the DMP facility. The DMP facility is pretty basic. It provides a bathtub for them, which is great. But as you can see, this area here has one enclosure with 6 cages leading onto it, and I'm guessing that they get, I don't know, a limited amount of time. Yes, whilst we rotated our tigers too, the enclosure was huge in comparison. And this is, as you can see, this is the only space that they actually have. So this is their outside area as well. With our tigers, they actually had the inside area, the night room or cage, and then they were also able to go outside as well. So for us to see the tigers here, it's kind of hard. What you have to understand is that for the most part, most of the tigers didn't have to have any tourist interaction. There was only 15 tigers out of 147 that ever went to the canyon. The majority of these tigers aren't interacting with tourists whatsoever, and they're actually out in enclosures every day, outside, and not having to see people whatsoever apart from staff and volunteers doing enrichment. Basically, and some of these tigers never ever, like some of them are retired and then had been with people early on in their lives and now have moved on to these enclosures, and some of the younger cubs never ever had to interact with people at all, so the only life they've known is an enclosure like this. And so for them, it's really hard. One of the first of the 10 tigers that was taken, he took it particularly badly. He spent his entire life with 2 other tigers. He's been separated from them and has never interacted with tourists in his entire 5 years, and is now stuck in a small cage and is already starting to show stereotypical behavior and severe facial injuries as well, which is highly concerning for us as the handlers. But as you can see, these are the enclosures that they're used to compared to what they have at the DNP right now.
Edwin, have there been any discussions with the DMP about finding a way to get the tigers back?
We've talked with the DMP last week. There are no plans to set up a new sanctuary or anything like it. They've asked for funds to build larger enclosures at DNP. We actually, as Wildlife Friends Foundation, have offered to make a donation of 1 enclosure to see what it's going to look like, and we're willing to help with this. But yeah, the talk about moving some of the tigers back temporarily to the tiger under different management was seen as a stupid idea and was not taken very serious. Unfortunately, moving them to other facilities is going to be hard. Currently, the tigers are being kept at 3 different facilities, 2 in Radbury, 1 in Nakhon Nayok. And yeah, you know, you see the pictures of the enclosures. I think for a couple of weeks, even a few months, it wouldn't be a massive problem, but I don't think it's the proper facility for long-term placement. A group of Thai NGOs have sent a letter to the minister and to the Department of National Parks to actually take this issue serious and act quickly and ask for a dialogue, because until now there has been hardly any dialogue. And on coming Monday the 20th, there will be a full day seminar on this issue with Thai NGOs, and some people of the government will be there. So I hope that we can have some progress over there.
Thank you. Next question, please.
My name is Well. I'm from Shrewsbury International School, and I want to ask, do you guys know where all of those tigers came from?
Question. Do you know where all the tigers came from?
For the very old one, like before my time, because I started working from 2009, I actually don't know what happened in the past, but most of the tiger that at the temple, when I was working there, they're born there. Beside one of the tiger, which named Saka, they say Saka. They say Saka has been rescued from some of the people from Bangkok. But after the tiger that born after 2009, I know that they're born there.
Okay.
Okay.
So seeing as you said a lot of tigers are born there, do you support captive breeding?
Personally, no. But I sort of know the way of the temple, and I know that we already have this tiger to look after, and as you know, like you need fund to look after this tiger, and then also I got explained that it's a temple way that you cannot stop breeding because they say it's in a temple you cannot not let anyone breeding with each other. But what we try to do is we try to not inbreeding. Like as we know, like this tiger is a family, like as Tanya said earlier, that we keep a record who's the mother of whom. So what we try to do is we try to not inbreed in terms of the same family, and that's what we have been trying to do.
I think actually I can answer your question about the origin of the tigers. The first 4 tigers in 1999 and 2000 came from Tui Chai Elephant Camp. The first 2 came from Tui Chai Elephant Camp, an elephant camp in Sayok near the temple. They were bought for about 50,000 baht each by the temple, taken into the temple. 2 more tigers were then purchased from Mr. C out of Radbury, who was a member of parliament at that time for the Thai Rak Thai party. And Mr. C had a crocodile farm and also was breeding tigers. The first 2 tigers came from the same farm, and the abbot at that time bought 2 more. The story on the website of the Tiger Temple says that, well, the story until about a year ago, the story said that the tigers walked into the temple because they needed protection. These tigers were Bengal tigers. They must have walked a long way because there's no Bengal tigers in the wild in Thailand. As a matter of fact, there's not many wild tigers near the temple anyway. But the Indo-Chinese tiger, what we find in Thailand, is not found at the Tiger Temple. The first 4 tigers came from a tiger farm, Bengal tigers, and did not originate from the wild, were not rescued from people. They were just there and kept on breeding.
Last question.
Yeah.
since you said a lot of these tigers were bred there, do you think there are any possible benefits to these tigers themselves or the general tiger population, like the fact that they're being bred there in the temple?
Yeah, originally what our plan is, as a temple, they actually have plan. That's why they have all those land prepared, because they want to build what calls the World Buddhist Sanctuary. So the temple, as I've been told, that we already have 1,000, 2,000 right area, which is just right next to the temple, and they're planning to build like 4 acre, time 4 acre for each of the tigers. So as far as I'm concerned, like our goal, like our final goal that we had before is to finishing up this World Buddhist Sanctuary. So our tiger, because as you would know that the captive tiger cannot be released back to the wild. So for me, the best solution for them is actually have a land for them, have sanctuary for them, and have care for them. So that was our goal for all this year. That's why we working there and helping people. But to reach that goal, as you can see, we need money, we need fund. Otherwise, you cannot buy the land, you cannot build enclosure. So that is why.
Wait, so you're saying that you're breeding them so that they can be kept in safe sanctuaries?
You said you were against breeding, and presumably the whole, 147 tigers in one place is a lot, isn't it? I mean, ideally you shouldn't have that.
Yeah. But I'm actually not supporting it. But I sort of know, and as I said earlier, I try to work together to reach to the goal. I actually don't actually support the breeding program, but as far as I know, like I try to work along with the temple, so I help at least this tiger not get inbred, and so in the future, if we can actually build this sanctuary to happen.
I mean, is it worth following up with both Chang and Tanya? I mean, in an ideal world, you both love animals. Would it not be better if the temple tiger sanctuary didn't exist at all? If these tigers were not in captivity, they just weren't there.
Yeah, in an ideal world, yeah. I hate any animal in a zoo or in anywhere. Like when I was younger, I actually don't like a zoo at all. But it's ideal world.
Next question, please. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Gabby. I am working for AFP. Do you have a sense of how much money was earned by the temple? You know, for example, Tanya, over the 6 years you were there, and who has wound up with the money? And if you have, as volunteers, I mean, I presume you were being paid at some point because you were working there for 6 years. I'd be really interested in knowing, how they motivated you to stay there for that long financially.
Tanya?
They didn't motivate me financially. I motivated myself just because I wanted to improve the welfare of the tigers. That's all on me. Okay, I have my own methods of raising my own money to stay here.
You weren't paid at all by the temple?
I got tips every now and then, but I have my own money and my own way of making money as well. And I had savings that I'd made before I even came traveling. I didn't have to pay very much living in Thailand. I had food and accommodation as well. So it's not really anything to do with that. It had nothing to do with any money aspect at all, because there really wasn't any. And it is purely just because I wanted to help the tigers.
As for me as well, as you can see, like I have basically 2 degrees, and one is from England. I can actually get a better job, better pay, because I almost like minimum wages. But same like Tanya, we passionate about tiger, and you start connecting to the tiger. Like since you raising them, you want to see them, because it's easy for people to say, oh, I'm not support this, I don't support the organization, but how about the tiger that live there or other animals that live there, because they don't know about this behind the scene thing. They just know that, okay, I wake up, I got some food, I got to play, and then I go home, I sleep. For us, we want to make sure that they are happy. That's why we are there, really.
I hope it's clear that I fully believe that you have good intentions and that you just want to make sure the tigers are safe. I for my own sake, the reason I asked the question is just that I feel you've been exploited, and I just wanted to understand exactly how much you had been exploited.
Did you know about the amounts of money that were being made there? Did you have any idea at all?
Well, I mean, we could calculate from what we made money from through the entrance fee per day and what happened with the program. So I know, like, from that, it was about 90 million baht a year, but I also know how much was spent on the food and upkeep of things. So I also know how much had to go on certain things and then how much would be left over. From our calculations, there wasn't actually that much left over, but then obviously I don't know what other means of funding the temple had on the side.
Edwin, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
but
you.
also part of the thing that we sort of know that the temple is doing with some of the money, so it's also they do like help the local community and the school around Sayok district. And I know that the temple, as part of like Buddhist temple, they try to explain Buddhist temple outside of the country, like internationally as well. So I know that some part of the money go to some of the temple in Australia, go to some of the temple in German, in Czech, in the US. So, and I think that's going to cost a lot of money. I'm personally, I'm not very religious, but I still sort of respect the understandable, because we have Thai people all around the world, and Thai people, they want to have temple in their religion. So I sort of understand that too.
Sorry, Edwin, do you have a sense of how much money was being made?
Well, yeah, well, you know, with 300 people on a day, sometimes more, sometimes less. I mean, we kind of have an idea. The cost of the care of the tigers wasn't really that much. I mean, the chicken fat is like 100 baht or less than 100 baht a kilo. It's not that crazy much. I mean, the profits have been massive. I mean, last year I tweeted it out that the abbot flew to Germany up and down for 5 days first class at 240,000 baht ticket. I mean, that gives you an idea what kind of money he was spending. The land he bought in the Czech Republic, what he bought in Germany, what he did in Australia, it's not registered with the Ministry of Culture, of the Department of Religion. Nobody seems to know exactly what's going on. Companies have been set up, you know, getting this money in and out. I mean, it's basically a money spinning operation. That's what it's been for all the time, and that was until the last minute. I mean, even at the moment the raid started, people were still in there, you know, walking around. It was big money, definitely big money.
I don't mean to pressure you, but, you know, 20 million, like, what are we talking about? What kind of figures? Like a gajillion? Like a Brazilian?
I think the last estimation, that was about a year ago when we had people down there to actually really see how many people went in. We came to an income, it was about, at that time, still 500 baht for the entrance of the temple, 1,200 baht for a selfie with a tiger, and no, not 1,000, only 1,000. Anyway, I think we came to an income of approximately something like 9 to 10 to 11 million baht a month. So yeah, that's a bit more than 90 million. Still a huge amount of money. I mean, if that money could be spent on conservation of tigers in the wild, that would be fantastic. But it's not.
Next question, please.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie. I've never been to any tiger temple, so my questions can be quite naive. But what we usually hear is that tigers are drugged in the temples, and I wanted first to have your opinion about it. And I have a second question. It's as now we all have our eyes on that temple, do you think that the others all around Thailand are also possibly doing illegal trade or drugging tigers? And will we further the investigations about the other temples as well?
So what's the first question to you two about were the tigers drugged?
With the drugging the tigers, I have the same question when I first volunteered at the temple, because at that time, as you know, I don't have a degree in this field, so I don't actually know much about the routine of the tiger and how they behave. So I was thinking about that too, and that's why volunteering. But since then, I've been trying all the food, I drinking their meal, I tasting everything they give to the tiger. So for me, I can confirm 100% tiger are not drug. And also, the more you working there, the more you can access more. And I haven't evidence anything about drugging the tiger. It's just about the routine of the tiger and how tiger behave in general.
So the people can approach the tigers like without any substance?
Yeah, basically our routine of the tiger is in the morning we close, so it's the sort of playtime for the tiger. We have them exercise and we feed them some chicken, and they come out to the public after 12. And all the tiger had been already exercised, already been fed, and all these tigers are used to people. So basically they just come out and take a nap, and we take them down to the canyon, and they have a couple hour nap in the canyon when people can take a photo of them. But it's also, there's some other thing that I noticed from the temple as well, that they actually cool the tiger down, make the floor quite wet to make them comfortable, and we put a shade for them. So because tiger, if they're not comfortable, they also not sleep, and also they don't feel like tiger. They're very lazy. They same like cat. They sleep like 16 to 20 hours a day, but our tiger have different routine, sort of saying, and we basically get the tiger come to have a nap, and then people can take a photo. For me, in comparison of everywhere else in Thailand or in some of the facility in the world that actually nearby, even in Kanchanaburi, they have another place that bring the tiger out. One tiger, I don't know how long, he been there, put him on a stand, and he stayed there from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I think it's unacceptable, and and other places in Thailand as well, like Sriracha Zoo, they're forcing tiger jump to the hoop, and I do not agree with that at all.
So, Edwin, what happens to the other? Because, I mean, Sriracha's got 450 tigers, hasn't it? I mean, that's dwarfs this place. What happens to them now?
Well, I hope that the government is actually going to use the information they have from the illegal wildlife trade. They have the DNA of animals confiscated over the last 10 years. That DNA should be checked against the tigers in captivity at all facilities, to show actually that there is a link between the illegal trade and the tiger farms. That's one thing. I just want to actually just answer a little bit of the question of the lady about the sleeping of the tigers. Tigers, most wild animals actually, when you keep them in small enclosures for a few hours or half of the day, they see coming out as an enrichment. They feel actually, wow, I'm getting out. I'm getting something out of this. So that's one of the reasons why tigers actually are quite docile when they come out. They're like, and they've been trained. I mean, I don't believe the stories about sedation or any kind of sleeping tablets or anything like it. It's never been proven. And I've always said it in my fight against the Tiger Temple. I've always said that if you can't prove it, don't say it, because what might look like it might have something to do with the behavior of a tiger in captivity. And one of the things is small enclosures, a couple of hours a day. Then, of course, you're happy with the time you get out. One thing is for sure, in the beginning of the tiger, until a few years ago, the abbot and other monks were mixing urine of the tigers and with water, and whenever a tiger was a bit naughty, they would spray the urine in the face of the tigers to keep them away, to keep them down. That's the only evidence we found on controlling the tigers.
Actually, I for me as a Thai, and I sort of disagree in that particular one, because I know, like, when you spray a urine on a tiger face, they will make a face, like they will make like smiling face with the tongue out, because the tiger, they can taste it as well, whatever they smell. So I know for the fact that some of the Thai staff, they keep the urine, and because of their belief is the urine of the tiger will help asthma. So they actually drink it, and they actually take home to their children and mix with orange juice and drink it. And in the as far as I know about the water in the tiger face, it's just, for me, it's normal water. Yeah. Because otherwise, as soon as you spray, the tiger will make face straight away, because it's, you know.
The spraying of urine in tigers' faces is basically a copy from the behavior in the wild, where tigers do that in dominance. So it is for a reason that was done. I've got videos and everything. We're not going to go there, but okay.
Next question, please.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Gilbert Sape. I'm from the World Animal Protection. First, I commend the two volunteers for being here and telling their story. I think you are really brave, you know, in telling us what you know about the Tiger Temple. These tigers, obviously, based on your story and based on what I've read, doesn't have any conservation value because of the inbreeding, and they have been kept in captivity, which means you cannot release them in the wild, and you cannot. Some of them actually are not endemic in Thailand. So these Bengali tigers, for example, you cannot release in the wild. So from your point of view, from the point of view of the volunteers, what do you think is the value of these tigers? If they don't have any conservation value, there's no value for research or for educational purposes. I mean, how do you look at the tigers, and what is the purpose of these tigers?
Okay. For the temple side, the purpose of the tigers was obviously tourism. For a conservation side, I believe some of the tigers haven't actually been DNA tested, so it's not 100% guarantee that they're all Bengal. Currently, the last week, the DMP did actually say that some of them they thought were actually Indo-Chinese, and they would actually do some tests, but as far as I'm aware, they haven't actually done that yet, or at least they haven't informed us of the results. As far as conservation side of things go, it's complicated. Recently, there's been more articles stating the importance of any tiger. It seems to be like a divided faction from what I've been reading. Some people believe in the pure subspecies, and some people seem to be pushing towards more keep the tiger on the planet. Now, that's obviously just a difference of opinion. So in one way, you could say that they still had conservational value because they still have DNA, genetics, and possibly might have a new bloodline from someone else. But I don't know that because I don't know any of the DNA, but that's a possibility. So they still could be viable for somebody if you like that kind of line of conservation thinking. If you're going for keep all the subspecies completely clear and separate, then obviously until we know for sure, and some of them are definitely hybrids, then you cannot use them. But it really depends on kind of which line of conservation you're following, if you see what I mean.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Yes, hello. This is Sybil Foxcroft again from Sea for Life. This is a question to Jang and to Tanya. You knew the tigers Dayanua, Fakram 3 and Happy 2?
Sorry, can you say it again, Sybil?
Say it louder.
Sorry. Did you know the tigers Dayanua, Happy 2 and Fakram 3?
Yes.
Yes.
You were very close to them?
Yes.
I want to offer my condolences to you.
Have you got a question, Sybil? Sorry.
Yes. Can you tell me what happened to them?
I don't know what happened to them. I just know that they're missing. So as far as I'm aware, they were taken out of the temple. I reported it, and the management assured me that they would look into it and try and find out what happened. They started to, and then the two people that were in charge and were looking for the tigers left the temple, and nothing further was done. So no, I do not know specifically what happened. I can guess, I can speculate, but no, as far as anyone telling me concretely what happened to them, no one has ever done so.
My condolences to you, Tanya. I know you were close to Happy too, and you, Jang.
Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Hartman with WWF, but just asking for personal interest. I saw in reports that there were other animals like banteng and lions and hornbills that were also found at the temple. Do you know why those were there and what the plans were for them?
I actually don't know why no one reported them. To be honest, I didn't know that the banteng needed to be reported. I didn't actually realize that it came under the list for the endangered animals until recently. The lion, Edwin already said how the lions came, and the hornbills I don't know. But they did take the hornbills and the banteng that DNP have, but they've actually, for some reason, they've left the lion behind at the temple.
The reason the lion was kept behind is because holding a lion in Thailand is not against the law.
Just the transport in and out of Thailand?
You being caught transporting it in or out of the country, yes, then you are, that's a customs law offense.
I mean, Janet and Tanya, did you ever feel that there was something wrong. There might be things going on there that were wrong and that you wouldn't approve of.
Well, like after the 3 tigers got missing, yes.
Yes, yeah.
But never before that.
Before that, it was something that, like, as a volunteer and as a tourist, when I come, it was something like, obviously you read about it a lot online, so it was something that I was very aware of. As I said, I kept detailed records specifically because there was all these rumors and allegations, so I made sure to keep records to actually look into it and see. And until the 3 tigers, I never really saw anything untoward. When the vet told us that he'd done something or registered something, I believed him. So for things when they told us, like, oh, I've registered the cubs, can the staff put the dead baby cubs in the freezer, it seemed natural that that's what the vet's asking. The vet works with the DNP and he's registering the tigers, all of them. So that to me didn't seem anything untoward. Obviously, once the 3 tigers suddenly disappeared, then suddenly that just completely changed everything, because then, there was obviously concrete proof in what might have been going on, but I hadn't seen it.
Did you ever consider at that point, I'm giving this up, I'm leaving?
Oh, absolutely. The next day. I actually very nearly just walked out straight away that day. Actually the second day. Basically, I nearly quit. And then the only reason, whether it was stupid or not, I don't know, it's up to you to judge me on that one. But I chose to stay just because I knew the work that I put into these tigers and the welfare, and to be honest, I actually thought that something worse would happen, and that actually if we all quit on the same day, what would happen? The tigers probably wouldn't go out in the enclosures at all, and if no one was there, then who at least was even monitoring? As I said, it was myself and Jiang that actually went straight up to management and started informing everybody and anybody that we could find that the tigers were not in the cages anymore, and probably it would never have been found out if we hadn't done that, because none of the staff really know the tigers that well.
Next question, please.
Can I ask one follow-up question? Sorry. Just curious, were the other animals there for a while, and were you curious about why there were other animals, and were they coming and going if it's supposed to be a tiger temple?
The other animals had been there since I've been there. The civet cats came whilst I was there, and the hornbills came, but like the banteng, buffalo, cows, and all this random herbivore animals that were roaming around, they'd all been there the whole time. I never saw any of those disappearing, but then again, a lot of them are cows, so I don't think people were really that excited about it. But a lot of the animals were coming in from locals, like for the buffaloes and the ponies and the cows and things like that. A lot of the locals were just bringing them in, half starving or in bad condition for some sort, and I was just told that that's because it's a temple and therefore any animal brought in would be looked after, and that kind of made sense to me at the time, so I didn't really question that.
Thank you.
Next question, please.
Hello, my name is Linda Christensen, and I'm asking just on self-interest. I'm wondering specifically for Edwin Week. Sorry, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, I'm just asking Edwin Week, do you think when as you're saying that you don't think that there's at the moment, any plans of a sanctuary, and you see the facilities at the temple, and you see the DNP facilities that the tigers are now stuck in at the moment anyway, do you believe that it was the right decision to remove all of them to the DNP facilities or not?
Edwin.
That's a question about ethics, law, and about basically from an animal welfare point of view, moving them or moving all of them is definitely not a good decision. However, when somebody leading a place like that is acting like he is, completely not respecting law, order, whatever. I mean, I'll give you an example. Last year, 6 bears were taken from the temple. They were never registered and they were illegally at the temple. Also, a lot of hornbills. There were also animals found there like jackals. They were all registered at night. The next day the DNP would come back and start removing them. Overnight, evidence disappeared. The jackals were let free or let go somewhere else. We found them later, but they were gone. No respect for the law. The hornbills were taken away. They were never registered. If somebody donates an animal to my facility, I will then make an official report to the authorities telling what kind of animal it is, why I got it, from who I got it, and from what kind of condition I got it. And then it's up to the government to decide whether I can actually care for it or not. In most cases, they want it. Even when they're not ready, they still want it. Now, this year, the abbot has bought again a Malayan sun bear. Didn't register it, kept it somewhere secretly, had a couple of more hornbills taken in, also bought them again from the same illegal wildlife trader. I think when he is acting like this, there was no answers about the 3 tigers that disappeared. It was December 2014 when the 3 tigers disappeared. Why did he keep it secret 3 months until end of February? Why didn't he come out with that earlier? And then he says, well, you know, we're working on it. But 3 months. You can't wait that long. If you claim that you didn't know what was going on, but you knew the tigers were gone, why did you wait 3 months with registering it, with even talking to the facility? He only told them when it became a problem in the media. The abbot has had every chance to have a proper dialogue, to have some kind of but he refused again and again and again under all kind of really strange circumstances. Every time he refused to have a dialogue, to continue talking, and he made it impossible. So he basically is only to blame for this. He alone is to blame for what happened today. The tiger's taken away. And I got to tell you very honestly, been trying to fight against this tiger temple for many years. I've been charged in criminal court twice. I've been charged in civil court once. The abbot wanted 15 million baht from me for what I said about the tiger temple 8 years ago. He has been going on forever. This removal of the tigers from the tiger temple is not a success. The closure of the tiger temple is not a success. It is a success once the tigers are in decent facilities and can spend the rest of their lives without having any more babies and reproducing. And it's also a success together with that after the people who are behind this, the people who have been trading, the people who have been allowing this, are actually put in front of court. Until this happens, it's not a success at all. So that's really my thought. To answer you directly, I'm very worried about the tigers. Absolutely, just like you. And I know very well how it is when you lose your animals that you care for. 4 years ago, a bit more than 4 years ago, I was sitting here when I was raided by a despicable man that was heading the DNP at that time. These were different times. There was a different person. And we had 99 animals being taken away in a horrible way, and we did nothing wrong. It was just a political game they played at that time to shut us up about the illegal trafficking baby elephants. I know exactly how you feel. It's horrible. And I really hope that eventually some good news will come out, that we actually see the tigers in better facilities and that we see these horrible people behind bars.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Hi, Jane from Xinhua News Agency. I've been tweeting with Edwin for a while.
Oh, hi, Jane.
Hi. When this thing happened a few weeks ago, we were at the temple. Now, I just wanted to ask the volunteers, since you've been there for like 6 years already, you've not heard anything about, what the Thais were doing there behind the scene, if they were taking some animals in and out of the temple, because I was there with my colleagues for only about a week, and I've already been hearing things from the security guard, from the neighbor, that a lot of things that were happening inside the temple, the abbot was not concerned. He was concerned more about the money that was going into the temple. And also, last year I took a couple of friends who went to the Tiger Temple. There was one Australian guy. He was the tour guide. So we were told to go to a specific area so that the tigers won't jump on us. But then the tigers were brought in, and they were very calm. And then the Australian guy said, "Oh, because it's a Thai temple, and these tigers actually hear sermons in the morning, so that's why they're so calm." So I do not believe.
Can we have your question, please?
Yes,
Sorry.
The volunteers. I do not believe for 1 second that for being there for 6 years, you've not heard of anything behind closed doors.
The question, I suppose, is did you hear anything, which I think I asked, but anyway, did you hear of things?
What sort of?
No. I'm saying if you've been there for 6 years, right?
Yeah.
You're there for 24 hours. I'm sure you would make friends with the locals there. you would know if there's something was going on that was wrong in there.
What are you
know?
specific? I mean, you're saying you were there for
For a week.
A week.
But I've already been hearing from security
But that was
guards.
that was recently, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, we knew a lot more then. But then what did you hear?
I heard that the security guard said that, like I said, the abbot didn't know what was really going on.
Okay.
It was his subordinates that
I mean,
was doing
to be
all
fair,
the-
I did actually ask this question, but anyway, we have another chance. You're being asked again. Did you hear whether there were things going on behind the scenes that made you worried or suspicious in the time you worked there?
Well, yeah, after the 3 tigers went missing, yes.
But not before then.
No, actually, like with this talking, I hear even sort of before I come to the temple. That's why we sort of personally I do sort of myself investigation about this drugging about this sneaking baby and stuff. But for me personally, I haven't seen anything. I know that sometimes some of the staff, when there's newborn, and if the mother not look after the baby, some of the staff might take that baby to home, and the next day take the baby back because they have to look after every hours. Have to feed, have to take care of the newborn baby overnight as well. But
did you ever hear things that worried you? I mean, you said, Tanya, you were careful to keep records. But in that time you worked there, did you ever hear rumors or talk that made you think, I wonder, is something going on?
Yeah, like for me, in the very beginning, they always sort of talking about they taking baby and selling the baby, but that's why I was there and try to searching for myself. But as I'm not actually living in the temple, my house is not far away from it. But when I was volunteering in the temple, I haven't seen anything that's happened. And yeah.
Did you really believe that if there were any rumors, they weren't true?
For me, yeah.
So, next question, please.
Hi, I'm Roger Arnold. I'm a freelance cameraman here in Thailand. My question is for Edwin. Edwin, I was going to ask you to recount what you had gone through with the monk and your legal battles, but you kind of already addressed that. My question, though, is still for you. The Environmental Investigation Agency put out a report a couple years ago, and I don't want to quote it directly, but as I understand the report, it basically outlines state sponsorship tiger farming by the Chinese government. And I don't have the report with me, so I can't quote it, but maybe you've read it. I'm just curious, as far as the whole tiger trade goes in the world, who do you see as the apex predator? I mean, who is killing the tigers? I mean, who is killing all the wild tigers, the farm tigers? Who's responsible? I mean, we could blame the Tiger Temple, but I know a little bit about this subject. It's a small issue and a much bigger issue. I wish if you could address that.
I think it's the policy of the Chinese government, who is the biggest consumer in this. Basically, the main market is China. It's the policy of the Chinese government to always say that whatever happens in other countries is their problem. So once a tiger carcass or a live tiger ends up in China, China basically says, well, it's not our problem. I think that is a very important point. The Chinese government co-signed the 14.69 document, the decision from COP in 2007, as one of the range states. They got only 20 or 30 tigers in the wild, but they are a range state. They signed it. They said they would cooperate. It's Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and China are all countries where actually the amount of captive tigers have been going up. A lot of people reason that the tiger trade that we see at the moment is all tigers from captive breeding facilities. So basically people saying, well, what's the difference between, farming pigs or farming tigers? What's the difference? Well, yeah, there's something to say for that. But when you have evidence that this illegal trade of farm tigers is also sucking up wild population of tigers, as has been clearly shown over the last few years, you see that there is a negative impact on the population of tigers in the wild that needs to be stopped. I don't think the farming of tigers, as the Chinese want it, is going to work because our enforcement is corrupt, it's lousy, and they're not working. And as long as that is like that, a regulated trade is not going to be working. And I think in September this year, the next COP is going on. The Conference of Parties is out in South Africa. And I really hope that the international organizations will actually put it back on the agenda. But I'm afraid it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, but more to my point is, the Thais are embarrassed that 147 tigers are potentially part of a tiger farm, and yet if I understood that report correctly, it said that the Chinese government was basically sponsoring tiger farming in China, and maybe I've understood that.
That was from the EIA in 2013. Yeah, that's a report from internet.
Isn't that much more embarrassing than what we're talking about here?
Well, as I said, they are the main market, and they don't seem to care. Yeah. They don't really seem to care. For them, it's just commodity.
I mean, there's nobody's gotten upset about it. It's kind of weird that we've had this huge, headlines here, and then nobody's talking about what the Chinese government is sponsoring.
Perhaps we will now. Just 2 more questions, please. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Alex Walsh, and I work for WWF's Global Tiger Programme, but these questions for my own personal interests in general. So my first question is to Tanya and Jay, and I was wondering what the Tiger Temple's policy is on pregnant tigresses, because I know in tigers, the pregnancy doesn't show until quite late stage. I was wondering if the tigers are left to their own devices, or are they taken to a certain area, and also if the people working at the temple are privy to how many tiger cubs are born.
I think you covered that before, but let's hear some more on it.
Basically, we always know which tigress is going to be pregnant. Which she's been with a male, so we know that in 3 months she will probably most certainly deliver. At the temple, we don't have specific maternity ward, as it were, facilities, so they do remain in the same area that they live in, just to minimize stress on moving them around or anything like that, and so they do stay in that same area. We do monitor them, and staff are informed that there is a possibility that she will be pregnant, and obviously we just keep an eye on her and make sure, and we know the date that she was in with the male, and when the male left, so you can sort of gauge a rough estimate of when she might actually give birth.
Okay, and I also have a second question as well. In quite a few of the news reports, they mentioned that there was tiger cubs used for bottle feeding in the sort of weeks running up to the actual seizure of the tigers at the Tiger Temple. And there was reports that 20 tiger cubs aged between 1 and 2 months were missing. I was wondering if these are true and if they've discovered for the tiger.
Is not true. I mean, if they managed to have 20 tiger cubs, I didn't know about it. Basically, in the last few months, the temple has actually been panicking because the youngest tiger cub is now, he's a year old at the temple, and a large part of the earnings came through the cub feeding tourist experience. The tigers had been separated for the majority of the year by us. To follow the request of the DMP, no breeding, so there was no actual tigers being put together, so there was most definitely no cubs. I believe the temple started to panic, and about 3-4 weeks ago, I did come up into Tiger Island to start my normal duties to discover that somebody had opened a bunch of cages to let the tigers in with each other, just regardless of who was related to who, and basically they were so panicky that they needed cubs that they were just trying to put any males and females together. So in terms of there being 20 missing cubs, most definitely not, because they were desperate for them and they wanted to use them for the tourists. If there'd been any cubs, they would have actually been used.
Last question, please. Thanks.
Hello, it's Linda Christensen again, and again I have another question for Edwin. So I know that you don't actually work for the DNP, but you have been obviously going against the temple quite a lot and speaking your mind, which I fully respect. And also I want to make it clear I don't actually support the abbot or anything and everything that has come forth now and everything that he has done. But why do you think that? Wouldn't it be a much easier solution to just prosecute the people if there is so much evidence of all these wrongdoings? And when you see the photos of the temple and the enclosures and everything that we do have at the temple, and then you see the DMP facilities, which are clearly lacking in everything from enrichment to area for them, hiding spaces, everything like that, why do you think that is so hard to prosecute all these people who were involved if there was so much evidence of all the wrongdoings?
You're suggesting that would have been better than shutting the temple down?
Yes, that you would have just removed the people instead.
Well, very honest, I would love the idea of that happening instead, of course. You might remember that about 2.5 months ago, I wrote an open letter and I sent a letter to the minister and to the Department of National Parks that I was going to sue them. I was going to sue them in administrative court for the reason that they were not going after the real culprits, not going after the real criminals. The DNP said at that time, and the police of Sayok said at that time, that they were going to charge one of the animal keepers for the illegal possession of 6 bears and the 38 birds and the missing 2 jackals. I then asked to the government, how dare you? How can you have double standards? When I was being charged 4 years ago, you did everything you could. You put my wife in jail, you had Hummers, machine guns around, 800 people around the place. It was a mess. You did all that to get me down. And now you have finally actually a real criminal with evidence, and you're basically taking a scapegoat. You can't do it. And this is one of the reasons why in the last few weeks it all stormed off a bit, because I told them I was serious. It really is ridiculous that scapegoats can get away, that the real culprits get away by using scapegoats. The abbot basically said, I didn't know about the hornbills. You know, when you get into the temple, you see a cage that's like 14 meters high. How the hell can you not see that when you get into the temple? He said he didn't know about the bears either. There was a massive cage with those bears in it. I mean, and then about the 3 tigers missing, he basically said he didn't know about it. Basically, he just keep on going like that. But you know, something had to be done. It had to be stopped somehow. I mean, I really feel for the tigers. I feel for the people that cared for the tigers. But how were we supposed to stop it? You know, there's been so many allegations and so little evidence. Everybody's seen the way the tigers were treated, and I have to admit that the last couple of years, the lives of many of the tigers, not all of them, but many of the tigers was improved a lot. But still, the uncontrolled breeding, the trade, it's all been proven. It had to be stopped, and the abbot didn't want to listen. And probably for what I'm saying today, he's probably going to sue me again. Well, we'll see you in court.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'd like to thank our 3 panelists for making the effort to come and clear this up. It's been a very wide-ranging discussion, and I hope it's been illuminating for all of you. Yeah, I think so. Thanks a lot, Evan. I really appreciate it.
In a minute.